Tonight, we're going to talk about Saturn going retrograde from June 29th, 2024 to November 15th. Nice to see you, Sin. Hello. Hello, Pam. Thanks so much for joining the live. If you're catching this live, you're very, very lucky because right now it's June 20th and tomorrow, June 21st, we have our Capricorn full moon. So what better way to celebrate the Capricorn full moon than by talking about Capricorn's ruler, Saturn. So this actually will help you to make the most of the Capricorn full moon. And of course, you can get your taroscopes for this lunation in the description below, as well as your horoscopes. So for those who do not know me, I am Joshua the Psychic. I do psychic astrology readings, coaching, parties via Zoom or in Los Angeles, and I offer gift certificates for my services. Everything I do can be found on my website, psychicsun.com. In fact, there you can also find your horoscopes for the current lunation, if you're catching this live, new moon in Gemini energy, as well as for tomorrow's lunation, the full moon in Capricorn on June 21st. So Saturn retrograde overview. Saturn, as we said, stations retrograde on June 29th and is going to remain so until November 15th, 2024. So it's going to retrograde in Pisces, covering the degrees it traveled between March and June of 2024. So look to what was going on in your life between March and June of 2024, because you're going to have an opportunity to redo its foundation, because that's what Saturn rules, foundation and structure. So you may be restructuring something that you were working on between March and June of 2024. It's an opportunity to refine, redo, revisit lessons. So think any retrograde, it's a re-prefix. Just like with Mercury retrograde, it's redoing things that are communication-wise. With Saturn retrograde, it's a redo in regard to their structural foundations. Saturn also rules karmic soul contracts, and it rules all forms of templates, including energy templates, which is specifically important for Saturn being in Pisces. And we're going to talk about that and how you can change a template, a built-in system in your brain, to be more successful, more happy, etc. Hello, Casmar. Nice to see you. Additionally, so Saturn is not very happy in Pisces. Saturn is Captain Real. It's real life, right? And they say nothing is real to a Pisces. Saturn is about structure, order, systems. It's about a foundation. It's about a trajectory. It's about templates. It's about the order of things, the established order of things. And Pisces is the wateriest water sign there is. Pisces is splish, splash all over the place. They're not known for boundaries. In fact, Pisces and Neptune are known for dissolving boundaries. So we have a little bit of a contradiction in terms when we're talking about Saturn being in the sign of Pisces. So Saturn is the strict, no-nonsense authority. It gives us lessons of accountability, responsibility, and maturity. But Saturn also rewards us if we put in the hard work. Now, Pisces, its influence is completely different. It's deeply emotional, it's mystical, it's creative. And there's going to be a bit of a challenge, right? Because Saturn is not emotional. It's the most unemotional planet, perhaps, right? So there's going to be challenges due to Saturn's discomfort in Pisces' boundless and fluid nature. But we can make it work. But the onus is going to be on us to be like, okay, well, Saturn is all about discipline and structure and order. And Pisces is about the nebulous, the uncertain, the mystical, the artistic, the creative, the subconscious, the imaginative. So how do we get Saturn to perform well in Pisces? That is what we all have to do while Saturn is in Pisces, specifically in the area in which Pisces falls in your chart, which we're going to talk about for all signs. You can gauge where those degrees are in your own chart, or you can listen to your horoscope for the Saturn in Pisces transit as well, which will follow. So key themes of Saturn in retrograde in Pisces. Well, we're integrating and deepening our lessons that we learned between March and June of 2024. We're revisiting and refining the foundational aspects of our lives. Personally and collectively, those people who have planets or points between 12 and 19 degrees of the mutable signs, that would be Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, or Sagittarius, will feel the impact more intensely. There's going to be a little bit more ease for Capricorn, Cancer, Taurus, and Scorpio during this retrograde, also at those degrees. So if you have Capricorn, Cancer, Taurus, or Scorpio between 12 and 19 degrees, again, it's going to be very supportive for you. So some tips in terms of navigating Saturn in Pisces and Saturn retrograde, specifically, embrace the lessons. You want to make sure that you're recognizing and integrating past lessons. If we don't learn the lesson, we're going to repeat it. Focus on building a solid foundation for future growth. With Capricorn and Saturn, slow and steady wins the race. The slower you start something, the faster you finish it. So think about how you can rectify and reinvent the foundations in your life. It's a very important time that we have to set boundaries, right? Because Pisces, by its very nature, is boundless. It doesn't have any boundaries. It is limitless. But Saturn is all about boundaries. So we have to make sure that we're enforcing our personal boundaries, even if it makes the other person upset or feel bad. Saturn would say other people's feelings are not your responsibility. And he'd be right. So you need to make sure that you're setting emotional boundaries. It's almost like being an empath with Saturn and Pisces, because we want to set a boundary, but because I'm feeling what the other person is feeling, I might want that person to feel better. So I feel better, right? And that's what a lot of empaths go through. So you still have to make sure that you're maintaining your own boundaries, that you understand how you feel emotionally, and that your energy is not getting conflated or confused with somebody else's energy, right? Especially if you have past trauma in which if you're okay, I'm safe, right? If you have that, then you really could work with this Saturn and Pisces energy. So be aware of overgiving and sacrificing personal needs. As they say, Pisces is a martyr that could make you cry. So watch out for that, right? Nurture your emotional health during this period. Practice self-compassion and reparenting techniques. Specifically, Father, right? Because Saturn pertains to the Father. So you want to tap into the energy of the Divine Father within yourself and give yourself the structure and the solid plans that you need to succeed. Address emotional wounds, especially those linked to father figures or masculine energy. That's going to be very important for us during Saturn in Pisces. Spiritual practices, again, Saturn wants us to be a master. They want us to have authority in our lives. And Pisces is the most spiritualized sign of the zodiac. So we got to master our spirituality during this transit. Engage in activities that soothe and nurture the soul. That could be yoga, breath work, nature walks, singing, dancing, meditating, time near water. Anything that makes you feel soothed is going to be helpful. And you also want to reflect and adapt. Pisces is very reflective. They have to process a lot because they take in so much energy. So reflect on the patterns of behavior that you may have. What are your coping mechanisms? Are they serving you? How might you self-sabotage yourself? Saturn wants us to take complete responsibility, right? So Saturn can't have us say, well, this happened, but it's because of this. And I went through this and it's that person's fault. Saturn does not care about your excuses whatsoever. The buck stops with you as well as far as Saturn is concerned. So you got to make sure that you're taking drastic responsibility for every area of your life in order to please Saturn. Sure, something may not have been your fault. Say you got an offender bender. Okay, fine. But Saturn would say karma, since Saturn is a lord of karma, that, yeah, you got into a fender bender and you didn't intentionally get into a fender bender consciously, but you create your own reality. And in this reality you created, guess what? You got a fender bender. The proof is in the pudding, right? If it happened to you, you create it. Saturn wants us to take drastic responsibility, even for those things that may not have been our fault, so to speak, especially if you have past life karma, right? A lot of times, especially with Pisces, we're going to be going through past life healing with Saturn, right? So we can relearn those lessons. And we'll talk more about that and what that means. So aim to change at least one habit that hinders your growth. Saturn wants to cut things off, right? And this full moon cycle, if you're catching this during a full moon cycle, or the Capricorn full moon, even better, this is a great time for you to say, you know what? No more of this. I can't do this anymore. It's not good for me. So Saturn is all about reality. And reality creation is your job, right? It's what you do, whether you intend to or not. We all create our own realities. Sometimes we do it by default, meaning without looking where we're going or without looking at the structures that we already have in place. So you can create your reality from memory. I.e., well, this happened before and this was so cool and I want to replicate this again. So you imagine what happened before, you superimpose it on the future and you can create your reality. That's a way of doing it, right? But an even better way, since you want to get something new in your life, is to create from the field. You want to create from your imagination. So you can create from your past experiences, you can create from the field, you can do a blending of the two. But ideally, in order for you to get past your energy templates that no longer serve you, in order for you to get past old stories that are no longer beneficial for your timeline, you have to create something that is unfamiliar. You have to make the familiar, past experiences, past stories, paradigms, unfamiliar. And you have to make the unfamiliar, what's in the field, your highest hopes, dreams, wishes, and goals, you got to make that familiar. Because it's what you're emoting that you broadcast and creates your own reality. That's why with Pisces, what we're being tasked to do is to leverage our imaginations, right? So this is a perfect time to daydream. Saturn would want you to daydream, right? Saturn would want you to keep front of mind exactly what it is that you want. Saturn would not want you to give any thought whatsoever to anything you don't want to be true. And we'll talk more about how you can leverage that. So energy templates are very important, especially in light of Saturn and Pisces. An energy template is a deeply embedded pattern or set of beliefs that forms a significant part of a person's psyche and energy field. This influences how they experience life and react to various situations. So, say you are born into a circus. That is your context. That is your template. You have the bearded lady over here. You have the clown over here. You have the trapeze artist over here. This is your context. This is your reality. That is what the world is like. That is your template, right? So if you were to be taken out of the circus at 7 years old, life would be very, very different because life is not like a circus, right? So think of the concerns you might have if that were to happen. Likewise, when we are in our childhood homes, that is our context. This is what reality is. This is our structure. This is our foundation. This is how life works. And when you leave your home, it can sometimes be a rude awakening to find out like life doesn't really work like that. Oftentimes it's better, right? Well, we don't have this nonsense to deal with in real life when we're adults and we can make our own decisions. Or it could be a matter of like, oh, geez, I really wish that the world was like this context, right? The previous context. But you're all brought into a particular system. And some of those systems might not be serving you, especially through the process of individuation, becoming your own person, an autonomous adult. Of course, the systems that you were brought in to this world with are not necessarily going to help you go to that next level of your development, right? I'm sure some things might, right? So there's some things that we're brought up with that are very good, our mores, our values, what it means to be a good person, etc. But there are some systems that we're experiencing very, very early on that do not make sense any longer. So that's what we mean by energy templates. We humans are like computers with energy templates as installed programs. So that example I gave, they have an installed program that life is like a circus. There's a bearded lady, there is the trapeze artist, etc. That's their system. That's their installed program. This is how life should be. Now, it's not just your childhood family, your childhood home that develops your templates. It can be about past experiences that you had, societal norms, and a few other things we're going to talk about. And templates have, as we said, positive and negative effects on your life. So your energy templates can come from various areas. What's very important with Saturn and Pisces, because Pisces rules the subconscious, it rules past lives. We have past life templates. So you may have experienced from your past lifetimes situations that are affecting your current behavior. For instance, you may never have been in a war, but you hear a bang and you jump. That might be a past life template because you were in a war in a previous lifetime, right? There are so many people who hate wearing turtlenecks or scarves. They weren't hung in this lifetime. They weren't choked in this lifetime, but they had a past life in which they were hanged, right? So keep that in mind. It might not be your fault, right? It's your responsibility because it's your past life, but you might have a past life template in place that makes sense. Like you could look at your family and be like, I don't understand why I'm like this. I had this and I had that. Well, again, it might be a past life thing. It could be a womb template developed during gestation, influenced by the mother's emotional state. So when a mother is with a child and she's pregnant, if she has a cigarette, she shares that cigarette with the child, right? Likewise, if a mother is experiencing anxiety or depression or anger or trauma, or she's saying, I can't wait to have this child, or I don't think I want this child, all of that you're taking in too, right? So you could have a template that is based upon what was going on while you were in your mother's belly. And what's cool about astrology, you can actually look at the 12th house, and that will talk to you about your past lives, but oftentimes we'll also talk about what was going on when you were in the fetus, right? Which is pretty cool. So that might be what affects you. That might be a template. You have family templates. So this is when you're conscious, you're out of your mother's body, and you're seeing how things go, and you're seeing the system of things. If I do this, I get in trouble. If I do this, I stay safe. Whatever it might be. And then you have societal templates. Women belong in the home, for instance. Maybe your society taught you that. Money is the root of all evil. Maybe your society taught you that. I think a lot of people that were brought up, like Gen Xers, a lot of them have a belief that money is evil and it makes you a bad person. Think of the 1994 movie Reality Bites, right? In this movie, you have Lelena, who's the Winona Ryder character, and she's this documentarian, and she has two options. She can go with this guy who is successful, and he might be a bit of a yuppie, the Ben Stiller character, but he's successful. He cares about her. He's respectful. He's honest, and he's rich. He has money. And then you have the Ethan Hawke character, who's Troy Dyer, and he has greasy hair and long hair, and he's a philosopher, and he doesn't care about money. And that movie, which really epitomizes Generation X, she goes with the Ethan Hawke character, who not only is broke as joke, but he's also he doesn't treat her right. He doesn't treat her well as she was treated by the Ben Stiller character. So my point is that in society, we have beliefs too. It might be not that money is bad. It might be money is really, really hard. You got to stretch your bills. You got to suffer in order to make a decent living, etc. And your society will help inform that for sure. Additionally, what you want to do during Saturn retrograde, if you're really wise, is to find your old templates and replace them. So for instance, you may have a template in regard to love that is rather unhelpful. This template might say, I'm unlovable. I'm only lovable when I'm perfect. I'm not worthy of love. Whom I love doesn't love me. That's a common thing that people see. There's always some bitch trying to take my man. I've heard that a million times. All the good guys are taken. He's a stud who's a dud. He hates me. Love leads to pain, etc. So if you find these scenarios familiar and it's happened more than one time, well, you have a template in place. No, it's not that you're unlovable. No, that it's not a matter of all the good guys are taken. It's a matter instead in your brain, the structure is such that I'm always going to have to defend my interest against some other person, right? Or I'm not lovable, whatever. You have that in your brain if it's a common occurrence, right? What you want to do, if you have any stories that you keep repeating, is to change them with helpful templates, helpful beliefs that you're inherently lovable. I am loved for who I am, flaws and all. I'm worthy of love and respect. My love is a gift and the right person will cherish it. I trust in the strength of my relationship. If you're already in a relationship, there is someone special for everyone, including me. So if you get that in your brain, that helpful template, then you're going to see your reality changing, because what's happening is how you feel on the inside is pushed outside you and reflects back to you. So if you have a belief about a particular thing in your life, you're going to see that bounce back. The universe really does not care whether you fail or succeed. It couldn't care less. It cares about reflecting back to you what you are, what you subconsciously are, right? And again, that's why the Saturn and Pisces transit is so important, because Pisces rules the subconscious, right? So maybe you have a health template that's not helpful. So I hear this a lot, and it's important to make sure that you don't say anything that you do not want to be true. Don't post anything on Facebook that you don't want to be true. So some unhelpful beliefs or templates around health might be, I always get sick this time of year. Well, your subconscious mind hears that and says, okay, looks at the calendar, time for you to get sick. My health deteriorates as I age, some people might say. Some people might say my metabolism is so slow. Why would you say that? Or my favorite, I have long COVID. Why would you say that? Why would you give yourself that sentence? Why? Well, for some people, a very deep subconscious template is I'm only loved when I'm sick. Think about it. Say you were raised in a very, very busy home, right? And you were maybe, say, just for argument's sake, you were the oldest, and it was all these other kids, your brothers and sisters, who their needs came first. And because you were the older child, you had to make sure that everybody else was okay, and your needs were put last. Maybe you realize the only time I ever got love and affection was when I came down with a cold. Whenever I was sick, I got love. If you experience that, then what is going to happen? You're a human being. You're going to want to be loved. So you're going to get sick because you have no other way of getting your needs met. Because in your mind, I only get love when I'm sick. So think about your paradigms, what was going on structurally in the home in which you were brought into. That'll give you a lot of information. A better template for your health: my immune system is strong. I remain healthy all year. I bounce back easily. I age gracefully, Every day, my body heals and my health improves. My heart is healthy, strong, and full of love. I focus on wellness. I have the power to create a healthy legacy regardless of my family history. You don't want to have in your head, oh, heart disease runs in my family. Well, why would you focus there? Why would you focus there? That's why with 23andMe, they offer a health aspect to it. And I was like, I don't want to hear this. Why would I want to have a list of things that genetically, supposedly, I'm exposed to from my ancestors, right? It doesn't make any sense. Don't focus on what you don't want. Additionally, maybe you have a wealth template that's not good, or a money template. Maybe your beliefs from, again, it could be through gestation, it could be your childhood home, it could be society, etc., past experiences. Money is hard to come by. I have to suffer to make a good living. If you saw your parents, if you saw your father like Death of a Salesman, well, that probably is going to make you think that it's difficult to make money, or money is the root of all evil. Like, if you believe that and you don't want to be evil, it's going to be hard for you to make a lot of money. I'll never be rich. I can't make money doing what I love. Money burns a hole in my pocket. These are things you do not want to say, right? What you want to say instead, and convince your subconscious that is true, money flows to me easily and effortlessly. I earn a prosperous living with joy and satisfaction. Money is a tool for good in my hands. I use it to create positive change. Abundance is my natural state. I am open to wealth in all its forms. I am financially rewarded doing what I love. I'm a wise steward of my wealth. Money serves my highest goals. So if you can impress upon your subconscious these helpful templates, you're going to have a better experience manifesting what you want. And again, it's not easy to trump an old template with a new one. That's why repetition is important. It's important to be structured and disciplined about whatever you want to believe. Like, you got to be structured and disciplined, Saturn, when it comes to retraining your subconscious to believe what it is that you want, right? You want these helpful templates in place. Self-expression. So some people who are artists, they have a belief that I never finish anything. Well, you keep saying that, and that's going to become an apparency, right? Or, oh, I can't draw a straight line and a ruler. Or, I'm not a musician. How do you know you're not a musician? How do you know? You don't know. I have nothing worthy to say. Might be a deep embedded template. I can't write, paint, dance, sing. My brother is the artist in the family. Well, why couldn't there be two artists? You see this a lot with like children who are either good in English or either good in math. I really think that it's like a label that we are meant to take on. Like, we're taught, okay, well, these are the people that are left brain, and these are people that are right brain. And I feel like we might at times get into a box when really there might be a lot of right brain people who are actually left brain. But because of the society in which they were brought into, their template, it was just easier to fit themselves in to some other construct. So you want to, you also may actually have been taught, and this is really interesting, but I get punished if I'm too happy or joyful. There are a lot of people that actually might believe that because that was their experience. So say you have, a miserable parent. Well, it's not uncommon for a parent to be jealous of their child. And if they see you being joyful, and they might get triggered from that joyfulness, you get taught really quickly, if I'm joyful, I get in trouble, right? So that's not a helpful template, because now we need our joy. Our joy supports us. It makes our lives worth living. It makes us money, right? So it's very important to make sure that you realize it's safe to be happy. It's safe to be joyful, because a lot of people, they might be perpetuating their misery because that is safety for them. Because if they seem as if they're too happy, they're going to get smacked down, right? So think about that. Think about what you may have been taught. What's a helpful self-expression template or helpful templates? I complete my projects with dedication and joy. My creativity is unique and flows in many forms. I'm musical in my own way. My voice and perspective are valuable and needed in the world. I have the ability to write, paint, dance, sing in my unique expression. Don't say can't. You can do whatever it is that you want. So what we need to do essentially is identify and evaluate which templates to accept or reject as adults. And while some templates are positive, others can limit your personal growth. And Saturn and Pisces is going to help you do that. So now we're going to go through all the signs and talk about how that might be affecting your sign with Saturn and Pisces and how you can make the most of it. Oh, interesting. You don't like anything around your wet and a fear of following. Okay, interesting. Okay, so you're playing with some past life templates. That's really cool. Well, you know what I mean. It's good that you know them. Oh, and I'm so glad to hear that, Casmar. I'm glad to hear that. So for Aries, Saturn in Pisces is transiting your 12th house because Pisces falls in your 12th house. So for you, it's really about focusing on mastering your subconscious. What do you believe? It's really important for you to develop habits that help you to retrain your subconscious mind. You want to focus on your spirituality. And you also want to master behind the scenes activity. What's your preparation like? Maybe you need to actually have more conversations with God and schedule those convos, right? You want to create structure in spiritual practices and address self-sabotaging behavior patterns. The 12th house has to do with the house of self-undoing. It's where we screw ourselves over. So sometimes we might get into a really, really great relationship. And then we think it's too good to be true. And if we're really intense, we might have the philosophy, well, I'd rather burn my house down than have somebody take my stuff. And therefore, we then sabotage it because we believe it's going to be ruined anyway, when really it wouldn't have been. You're just jumping the gun and neurotic. So look at where you self-sabotage. We all do it. But with Aries in particular, you've got to get a hold on that. You've got to get a hold on what you are sabotaging. Potential for deep healing and closure of past cycles. So 12th house is endings. You know, this might be a lesson in really learning when to call it a day, when to get off the bus, when to put a nail in the coffin and say, this is over. This is done. You know, for instance, there might be some people that keep going back to the same relationship over and over again, even though it's not for their highest good, etc. So Aries might be tasked with ending something for realsies, for good. So for Taurus, Saturn in Pisces is hitting their 11th house. That's the house of hopes, dreams, wishes, and ideals. So Taurus is having to master friendships, networking, and really their long-term goals. How are they going to make this happen? Do they have that belief that they can achieve their objectives? They have to learn how to establish boundaries within social networks and work toward community-oriented objectives. So they got to understand the power of the group and how that power can be put toward practical purpose. And also, if Taurus has any wild hopes, dreams, wish, or ideal, well, Saturn's saying, you know what? We need a plan, man. What's our next step? What are we going to do a year from now? Where do we want to be 5 years from now? What steps do we need to take in order to make the dream real? So that ought to be fun for you, Taurus. Gemini, Saturn is in your 10th house. So you're being tasked to really perfect your reputation, your career, what you're known for, how the world sees you. This is really about branding, right? Being really clear as to what is your brand as a professional. What do you stand for? What's your contribution? What can you do better than anybody else? And why, right? So you want to make sure that your career is on the right track. You want to concentrate on your image, your long-term achievements, where you want to go professionally. This is also a time where you may have to implement discipline and structure in your professional life. You may have to say, you know what, I got to make sure that I hire an assistant because things are falling through the cracks, right? And just making sure you're doing everything that you can to do the right thing, essentially. And it's an opportunity to build a very solid reputation and achieve really great milestones. Because again, if you put in the work, Saturn will reward you, and Saturn is probably happiest in the 10th house. So that should be good for you. For Cancer, Saturn in Pisces is hitting your 9th house. That's pretty gentle. So you want to focus on your higher ed. If there's learning that you're involved in, or you want to go back to school, you want to get some certification, you want to broaden your mind, this is a great time for it. It also might be a time for you to structure some travel plans or get really in touch with what do you believe philosophically? Like, what's your big picture view of the world? Especially if you're in school or you have something you want to learn more, this is a great time for you to just develop a structured approach to learning and expanding your horizons. The 9th house is also entrepreneurship. So this could be a time in which you are learning how you need to structure your life in order to be a successful entrepreneur. What structure has other people followed? Have other people followed? What business plans have other people followed that have been successful? And you want to refine your beliefs and seek deeper spiritual or philosophical understanding. Get clear on what you really believe, because it may be changing, that's for sure. For Leo, Saturn in Pisces is transiting your 8th house. This might be a little tricky because Leo is learning how to metaphorically die and let go, right? How to amputate things from their life that they've grown accustomed to. Leo is a fixed sign. They like what they know, even if what they know might be hindering their progress in other levels. This is also an emphasis for Leo on shared resources, where they're sharing with other people. They might have to master sharing during this period. Like, can they give more if they want more, right? Might be a time in which they're tasked with really transforming, that they have to let a part of themselves die in order to go to that next level. And it's deep psychological work. It really is about healing old trauma when we're dealing with the 8th house, right? Also, with the 8th house, you're dealing with financial partnerships. You want to address issues related to your debt, if you have any debts or inheritances, or say you want to make sure that the people that you leave are all taken care of. This would be a good time to make sure that everything is all situated so people are not in probate when you pass on. Make it easy for your heirs. And it's an opportunity for profound personal transformation and healing. You can heal a lot with Saturn and Pisces, but you've got to do the work. So find out what modalities of healing you're most excited about, because you want to enjoy your process, because it's lifelong, right? So for Virgo, Saturn is in your 7th house. This is all about your partnerships. You're being tasked with being a responsible partner. So you want to focus on your partnerships, your relationships, your one-on-one connections. These are all long-term partnerships. Your spouse, your best friend forever, consultants, people that you wind up seeing on a regular basis or communicating with on a regular basis, clients. So you got to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to be a responsible partner for these people. Also, the 7th house may have to do with your audience if you're a public figure, or if you want to build an audience, right? It's a time for you to establish very clear boundaries and responsibilities within relationships. So you want to make things really, really clear. You can't be ambiguous about your boundaries or what's acceptable or unacceptable for you. You've got to make it really clear with this transit, right? I'm going to give you this and you're going to give me this. Like, make things clear. It might be a little uncomfortable at first, but it's what Saturn wants. With the 7th house, Saturn, we want clear agreements. Even if they're tacit, that's fine. You don't need a contract for everything, but you want to make sure that you are on the same page with your partners in life. And you want to strengthen and solidify your long-term partnerships through mutual commitment. How can you solidify those partnerships you already have? What can you do to make sure you're showing up and that you're growing together, right? Because with Saturn in the 7th, you might be the one that's responsible for keeping your relationships on track. Your relationships might take a little extra work with Saturn in your 7th. So for Libra, Saturn is in your 6th house. The 6th house has to do with your daily routine, your health, your work, your day-to-day operations, the nuts and bolts of your lifestyle. So it's time for you to concentrate on your health. Can't really get away with staying up all night when you get Saturn in the 6th, right? Things might catch up with you more quickly. So you want to make sure that you're balancing. If you have a late night and you get home at 2, okay, well, let yourself sleep until 9 or 10 the next day, right? Give yourself that grace, but you want to balance, right, with your health. So I'm not saying you need to be Little Miss Perfect with your diet and your exercise and your social schedule, but you want to make sure you're balancing. Remember, you're a Libra, so you balance. Daily routines. So this is a great time for you to like solidify and say, okay, every day I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Or it could be a matter, especially I think with Jupiter and Pisces, it might be cool to be like, okay, I got to do these. These are the 5 things that I need to do in my life. But on Mondays, I can do 2 of these things. On Tuesday, I have more time in my schedule. I can do 4 of those things. You can like mix and match, but you want to make sure that you're finding the right combination of things to make you well or happy while Saturn is in your 6th. So create some structure in your health and your work habits. What do you need to get your work running like a well-oiled machine? How can you streamline your processes? This is a great time for you to create better systems on the work front. It's also a nice time for you to improve your well-being and your productivity through disciplined routines and making sure that you're doing everything that you can to stick to your keystone habits. So it's not so much a schedule that you need to adhere to. You can, but I feel like with Jupiter and Gemini, we're going to have to be a lot more flexible in order to succeed. It's like, yeah, well, I'm scheduled to do this, but there's this bigger opportunity. Well, you drop the smaller opportunity, right? To make sure that you're balancing things and you're being flexible. And oftentimes, if you have to change something, it actually almost always, in my experience, it always suits the other person because other people are going to be a lot more flexible. But make sure that you have a nice system in place in regard to health and work during this transit. And Scorpio, well, you got Saturn and Pisces hitting your 5th. This is super fun for you. So Scorpio, essentially, you got to be responsible with making sure you're having fun. Are you being responsible having playtime and enjoyment and doing things that light you up? With Saturn in the 5th, there's an emphasis on creativity, your children, if you have children, or anything that you create. So that could be creative projects and also your personal expression. Are you having fun? Are you laughing? Are you joyful? Are you giving yourself time for joy? Because Saturn wants you to do that. I mean, it doesn't happen every day where Saturn wants you to have fun, right? So definitely enjoy this transit. Develop discipline and creative pursuits and hobbies. Like if you do want to make something real and you want to make a living as an artist, for instance, well, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. These artists, they have to do things on a regular basis they don't want to do. So you got to be disciplined. Even if you're, say you're a writer, you got to make your quota if you're a writer, because that's your creative passion, right? And you got to make sure that you're staying on track. And that's key for Saturn, staying on track. So create discipline in your creative pursuits and even your hobbies. Make sure that you're balancing things, not doing too much of one thing, not enough of another. And you also want to make sure you're creating some kind of structure in your relationships and your parenting responsibilities. There's a certain consistency that you can create, even if it's drinks at the bar on Friday night. right? You want to make sure that there's some consistency that you even have with the fun things that you're doing, and that you're being responsible, that you're making sure you're getting your play in. Who knows? It could even be structuring play for other people. And I feel like, especially if you're in a relationship with Saturn in the 5th house, you got to make sure that you have date night every single week. Like, what are you doing to make sure that your relationship is keeping that spark, right? That's still fiery and still passionate and still really exciting for you. That might be an instance where you need to be a little bit more creative, and that's key. Like with Saturn in the 5th, you have to be more creative, Scorpio, and that could be a lot of fun because you're one of the most creative signs. For Sagittarius, Saturn in Pisces is going to be testing you on the home front, domestically. The 4th house has to do with things that make us feel emotionally secure. Oftentimes, it's our family, our house, our home. However, at the end of the day, it's all about you having a very, very strong sense of emotional self-trust. Do you trust yourself? And that is super key for everything. Because if you have self-trust, then what are you going to do? You're going to have perfect trust in the universe, because that's what self-trust is. Because you're the universe. So logistically, there might be things that you got to focus on in regard to home, family. What are you doing that is going to make you a responsible family member? And also your emotional foundations. What are you doing to make sure you're feeling emotionally secure, that at the end of the day, you're feeling tucked in and cozy, right? That's going to be on you. That's your responsibility to make you feel all tucked in, warm and cozy, all yummy inside. That's what you need to do. You got to find out what's your happy place and go there regularly, i.e. at the end of every single day, you should have a sanctuary. You should have a place where you can collapse and restore yourself, rejuvenate yourself. And what would help is to establish a solid and structured home environment. You know, if you're a parent, for instance, everybody has their chores, and there are consequences if these chores are not done. It could be about really being responsible to yourself and delegating. You shouldn't have to do everything around the house. Maybe you need to delegate to your kids or your husband, etc. Or you may need to make sure you're doing it yourself, that your responsibilities are being checked off of your list, and you're again being a very good role model, so to speak, for yourself. It's an opportunity to heal family dynamics and create emotional stability. Again, this is a time for Sagittarius to make sure they're the mature one in their family situations. And that might be being the bigger person, letting something go, being the one that calls things out. Hey, I know you said that to me the other day. I just want to make sure that we're good, right? You want to be the one that is the adult on the family front. That's going to make your life a lot easier, being the adult, being the mature person in your home. For Capricorn, well, Saturn's in your 3rd. This is going to be good for you, Capricorn. It's going to take work, right? So the 3rd house is all about your communication, your mindset, your communication, how you talk to other people, where you go on a regular basis. The 3rd house really is everything but the kitchen sink, it seems, because it involves, the 3rd house aligns with your training when you were a kid, like grade school. It has to do with your neighborhood, your neighbors. It pertains to your siblings. It pertains to short distance travels. But with all of these things, it's about thinking. Like in grade school, we learn logic, right? And that's what the 3rd house is about. 3rd house wants you to get from here to here. And that's why short distance travels, communications with other people. So you want to make sure that you are becoming a masterful communicator, and that you're becoming an apt pupil. If you're learning anything, you might be. You probably should be if Saturn's in your 3rd. And also your local community. This will be very helpful, actually, with Jupiter and Gemini, because with Jupiter and Gemini, there is a lot of fortune or luck to be found in our neighborhoods, in our local community, which is a Gemini thing and also aligns with the 3rd house. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, Capricorn. You can work your Saturn and Pisces in the 3rd and also work that Jupiter. You want to develop disciplined communication habits and learning techniques. Don't be coy. Say what it is that you want, right? Don't be passive aggressive. If something's bothering you, we'll speak up about it. And also, I think the most important thing in the third house is how you talk to yourself. So you want to be disciplined in your self-talk. Don't give yourself the luxury of a negative thought. Don't say things aloud that you don't want to be true, right? And of course, it's an opportunity for you to strengthen your relationship with your siblings. You got to be the responsible sibling, which is going to be difficult for you because you probably are the responsible sibling anyway, Capricorn, and also with your neighbors. So this could be very, very fun. Aquarius. So Aquarius, you get Saturn in your second house, which pertains to self-expression, your talent, your values, your money, your property, all movable properties. So not your house, but everything else that you can move is your second house. So you want to focus there. Are you living a value-oriented lifestyle? Because that's what happiness is. Value fulfillment. You value this, you get this, you're happy. You value something, you don't get it, you're miserable. And it also might be very beneficial for you to make sure that you're balancing your values. So it's not a matter of you're putting all your eggs in one basket. For instance, you don't want to be like only valuing love, because then if your significant other is in a mood, that ruins everything all day long. When really, work's going great, your career's going great, your friendships are going great, you're forgetting that you have these other values that are being fulfilled. So you want to diversify those things that make you happy, because if you focus on one thing that's going well, that's going to bleed into the other areas of your life. Likewise, if you're focusing on one thing that's going terribly, that could bleed into the other areas of your life too and make them less joyful. So keep that in mind. You want to create a budget, perhaps, if you feel like that's necessary. There are some people that don't need a budget. They're just really good at eyeballing it. So determine for yourself if you could use a budget. I mean, it might be responsible to make sure that you're saving money for a vacation or for a house or another house, or, you know, for whatever it is that you value. And it's also an opportunity for you to solidify personal values and determine, again, what really matters to you. I feel like with Uranus and the sign of values, Taurus, the past few years, we're all going through a transformation of our values. And you want to build financial security however you can. Maybe this is about taking your wealth to the next level, or looking at investments or IRAs, etc. Maybe also, since you're an Aquarius, you're looking at new forms of currency that you see the writing on the wall. And if you're an Aquarius, you're probably aware of what's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so find out. I would be responsible with what's going on in the financial landscape, even if that's not your jam. And last but not least, Pisces. You get Saturn in your sign, Pisces. So Saturn wants definition. And with Saturn in your sign, Pisces, Saturn wants you to define your personality. It's your first house. So it's about your self-identity. That's your self-construct, how you perceive yourself. Because everything is about how you perceive yourself, right? Like if you can't see yourself achieving a goal, you're not going to achieve the goal, right? So you got to be disciplined in making sure you're seeing yourself in a way that aligns you up with goal achievement. It's a time for you to really focus on your personal goals and also your physical appearance. I feel like this is an important thing if, for instance, you want to go to the next level in your career. Well, are you playing the part? Have you been playing the role that you need to play? Are you dressing the part? Because the first house does have to do with your presentation, how you present yourself. You want to look at your goals and make sure, are you presenting yourself, positioning yourself in a way that aligns with your goals, and not just professional, but even romantic or friendship? Are you dressing the part, essentially? You want to make sure that you're focusing on yourself as much as you can. And I think that for some Pisces, that's rather difficult. So develop a disciplined approach to your personal development and your self-care. How are you taking care of yourself? And it's an opportunity really for you to redefine your self-image. Are you who you want to be, or are you who you were told you are? And it's time for you to pursue personal aspirations with structure. So just think about what really, really matters to you, what you want your life to look like, and what is the structure? What's here? What's there? What's here? What's there? What is your life made of? And it should be good for you. You'll create some definition. So for concluding tonight's talk about Saturn retrograding in Pisces, Saturn's about the mastery, right? You mastering what it is that you're supposed to master with Saturn in Pisces. And its retrograde period is a time of profound growth as well as self-mastery. So you get to redo and make sure that you're going over those things previously that you may have missed. So it's time for you to embrace the challenges as opportunities for strengthening your foundations, your emotional resilience, and implementing helpful energy templates. You want to make sure that you're programming your subconscious mind with the information that is going to help you achieve your ends. Some final tips. Remember, Saturn is in Pisces, so we're tasked with being more Piscean in a masterful, responsible way. So that's about being flexible, adaptable, going with the flow. If plans change, again, this is also important in regard to Jupiter and Gemini. We got to stay flexible. We got to be more flexible. Okay, well, you want to do that then, not now? All right, that's fine. You make it work, right? Prioritize holistic health, meaning the whole picture, because that's what Pisces is about. It's about wholeness and spiritual nourishment. Make sure you're taking care of you. And most important, Pisces is, as we said, the most spiritual sign of the zodiac. And it really aligns with the law of one. So don't feel like you're having to do this all on your own. You're co-creating with the universe a divine life, a fulfilling life. And as soon as you relax your mind and see it as a beautiful, calm lake, for instance, or river, you're going to be able to hear your higher self. Because if you call, God, spirit, universe will answer, right? Seek and ye shall find. So I think the most important thing is to remember to develop a strong sense of faith. You're always going to believe or trust in something. Even if you're going to trust that everything's going to go to hell, you're believing in that. You're trusting that things are going to be catastrophic. So you want to make sure that if you're going to believe something, why not believe everything's going to go in your way? Why not believe that the universe is for you? Because whatever it is that you believe is going to become an apparency. That's why you got to take responsibility for implementing new templates in your brain that align with what you want to achieve. So thank you all so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it, especially if you're catching this live. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. If you're watching this live, it's Thursday. As well as a wonderful full moon in Capricorn if you're watching this live, as well as a wonderful transit of Saturn in Pisces. You can check out my website, psychicsun.com. If there's anything else I can do for you, you can also find horoscopes for this nation on my website too. Everything is linked down below. Have a wonderful week, and I shall see you soon. Bye-bye.